Who's the stupidest person you've ever met, and what story perfectly sums up their stupidity? Story 1. My cousin. All through public school, she was a snob who looked down on everyone. She was super stylish and struggled academically. We graduated in 2014. We both went to colleges, not the same one. She got a job at a bar, stayed out late drinking. Her boyfriend told her she didn't need to complete college, so she just stopped showing up. Didn't drop, just stopped showing up. Completely flunked out. Here comes the mega stupidity. Our families live hours away from her college at the time. Her family went to move her back home. My cousin's mom noticed a pile of clothes in the corner. The mom said, "What's that?" "Your laundry. Pack it, and we'll wash it when we get home later." My cousin, "I kid you not. You can wash those." Turns out, she'd been throwing away clothes instead of washing them. She claimed she didn't know she could, yet she washed her undergarments and bras without a hitch. She's now at home with her family and has started doing more chores to show an increase in responsibility. She still tries to throw clothes away, citing that she didn't know they could be washed and reused. Makes me wonder what she thought all those years before college, before she left home. She wore some of the same outfits repeatedly. She had to have known they could be washed. Story 2. I worked with a man named Roy. Roy had theories about how to live life. Royconomics. One day, he turned to me and the other member of the crew. "You boys want to know how you get nice things?" he asked. "You go to the store and you finance everything. New furniture, new appliances, televisions, stereos, everything. Then you don't make any payments and you don't show up for your court date. They'll end up garnishing your wages, but they take way less than the payments would have been. Then, about a week later, you boys want to know how you buy a house. You apply for every credit card you can possibly get. You take out your entire balance in cash from all of them, and you use that for your down payment. Then you don't make any payments, and you don't show up for your court date." Asterisk for people thinking that they may know this specific Roy. I last saw him 10 years ago. At that time, he was in his early 50s, was rocking a gray/blonde skullet, and lived in a hamlet in the province of Saskatchewan. Story 3. I am sure if I thought real hard I could come up with someone more stupid, but this story is pretty good. There was this receptionist at the veterinary office we have taken our dogs to over the years who argued with my dad about how to pronounce his own name. He went in to pick up some prescription for our dog Daisy, and this girl asked the typical name of dog, name of owner type questions. "We have it listed as Michelle, and you don't look like Michelle," she says. Dad asked how it was spelled on the monitor, and sure enough it was still spelled Michael, Dad's name. He said, "That says Michael. That's my name." And she argued with him about it. He had to get his driver's license out to show her. And even though she finally relented to let him pick up whatever it was he was down there to pick up, she was adamant my dad has been mispronouncing his own name for 50+ years. The best part is Dad tells us this whole story, and we think nothing of it till like 3 months later, when Mom took the dog in for a checkup. The girl still thought the owner of the dog was Michelle, and that my mom must be in a lesbian relationship. Mom gently corrected the lady that it was Michael, and again this girl was adamant it was pronounced Michelle. Mom, bemused, said something along the lines of, "It's literally a name from the Bible. It's pronounced Michael, and has been for thousands of years." The receptionist sat in silence outside of the minimal amount of talking needed for the rest of that visit. Story 4. I once called an Uber driver. When he arrived, he immediately asked me, "Are you going to X location?" I said, "No." He responded, "Great, because I'm not going to take you to X location." "Fine," I said. The journey got underway, and I was curious as to what he would have done if I'd said that yes, I wanted to go to X location. So I asked him, "Hey, what would you have done if I had said that I did want to go to X location?" He responded, "Look, man, I'm not going to fucking take you to X location, okay? I told you already. I was a bit befuddled, but I tried again. No, I don't want to go there. In fact, you already know where I want to go. It's on your destination map. I'm just curious, what if I did want to go to X location? Would you have refused me the trip? Would you have driven off? He said, look man, I can't change the trip now. And anyway, I told you I refused to go to X location. You gotta understand I'm busy. We spent nearly 15 minutes with variations of this back and forth. He was a fluent English speaker, by the way. By the end of it, I was 100% convinced that he couldn't understand the syntax of a hypothetical. He literally couldn't understand the question. If X situation, which is not the case, then what action would you take? I wasn't even mad, just astonished. How had he navigated through life thus far? What were his financial decisions like? I really wanted to follow him home and make a reality TV show about him or something. Story 5. I knew this guy in high school really thought his practical jokes were hilarious. He would just do stuff designed to piss you off, thinking your salty reaction would make it funny. You may be thinking this guy's a dick, and you'd be right. But he's also incredibly stupid, because every time someone said, dude, fucking chill out with your bullshit, he just blew it off. Social stupidity, I guess. Well, one day he knocked this kid's hat off his head. These guys were friends, but clearly there was some hostility. Other kid picks up his hat and tells Pranker to fuck off. Pranker smacks his hat again. Another kid tells him if Pranker knocks his hat off a third time, he'd knock Pranker's head off. Pranker has a shit-eating grin, completely oblivious to how dead-ass serious this guy was, and got absolutely clocked in the face when he fucked with this guy's hat a third time. All he could say was, what the fuck man, chill out. But no one was willing to hear him out. Story 6. Guy in my aircraft technician class. I'll call him Jim. The module at the time was about electrical power. We were having a review one Friday before the exam started. Earlier that week, we had covered the batteries used on the aircraft, what types, how they were constructed, etc. Trainer turns to Jim and asks him about the different types, expecting him to say lead acid, lithium ion, and so on. Nope. Jim thinks for a moment and says AAA, AAA, C. When we got to the hangar for work experience, the same trainer had lost all faith in Jim. We were all assigned jobs in the morning. Me and another guy on wings, a couple more on landing gear, all down through the group. Then he gets to Jim, placed an A4 sheet of paper on the ground, and told Jim to stand on it so it didn't blow away. We all laughed, Jim included. The trainer was joking, right? He wasn't joking. Jim stood there all day. Story 7. I once had a property manager, person in charge of the rental I lived in since homeowners who lived out of state, who did a bunch of obnoxious things. My husband and I thought she was greedy and maybe getting money for herself and hiding it from the homeowners for repairs or something like that because of shady seeming things she would do when we had repairs. Then we mentioned something about gardening. She said, you know, I've always wanted to try growing tomatoes and just watering them with salt water. That way, the tomatoes would already be salted when you ate them. Huge reminder to never attribute to malice what is just pure old-fashioned being dumb as a rock. Story 8. Friend in college. She had lots of stupid moments, but the best story is probably the night she went home with a guy and was freaking out the next day that she might be pregnant. They had not had sex. He'd just fingered her, but for some reason she thought maybe he had sperm on his hands and therefore could have got some inside her. I never fully understood why she thought this. I vaguely remember her saying something about he might have been jacking off before he touched her, but she didn't see. I don't know. So anyway, she is so anxious about this, she decides she needs the morning after pill and gets it. Then, because of the warnings about how ill it can make you, she came to the conclusion that she needed to tell her parents the whole tale Honestly can't remember her logic here. Why she didn't wait to see if it even made her sick, or why being sick would be suspicious and would give her away, which led to a lecture about promiscuity. Best part of it, she was studying to be, and now is employed as, a goddamn science teacher. Story 9. I was lifeguarding at a frat party. My lifeguard friends all told me not to be a lifeguard for this frat, but I had my certifications freshly renewed, and they were paying really, really well, so I took on the challenge. Would not recommend it. There was a very drunk guy who offered me a drink when I was standing. I said no. I was guarding the water. Afterwards, this same guy gets a full beer, not even open, and bashes it against his head and screams woo. He is bleeding from his head now and recognizes, is shocked for a second. Then it hypes him up even more. He then dives head first into the dirty 6-foot pool filled with people. This water is shallow. He literally could have paralyzed himself. I just whistle at everything he is doing, and when he gets out, he can't understand why I am frustrated, and tries to flirt with me. Mid-sentence, he recognizes he lost his Ray-Bans, stupid expensive shades, in the murky water, and asks me to drain the pool. This dude was just such an idiot, and acted stupidly the entire 3 hours, while his even more stupid friends hyped him up. Story 10. In everyone's military career, there is that guy you kind of want to help then realize it's a waste. My that guy didn't just take the cake, he took the cherry on top too. First encounter with this guy was when I found his weapon in a porta-crapper. I walked out with my weapon and his, saw a higher-ranking sergeant, and turned the weapon over to him. Turns out this was that guy's squad leader. 10 minutes later, I see that guy doing rifle PT in full battle rattle with a sign around his neck stating, "I forgot my weapon in the shitter, don't be like me. I'm a dumbass." This would not be the last time he lost his weapon or important field gear. I found out later on the unit tried to dump this dude off onto another battalion. He got sent back to us for refusing to cut his hair and follow various other orders. When we were overseas, he had a random outburst in the chow hall, shouting, "You don't see a D in my P." We found out it was because his ex-wife was dating other dudes. Later on, he had his weapon taken away from him because he threatened to shoot people in his squad. Not long after that, he was found self-pleasing to a family guy. There were a slew of other things as well. After deployment, that guy got put onto my crew as my driver. He wasn't allowed to drink because he would get white girl wasted and overdramatic. He once threatened me that he was going to turn himself into the sheriff's office instead of reporting for duty because he got rejected by some girl. When I told him to do it because I'm not a babysitter, he started sobbing, saying it was my job as his surgeon to fix his problems. Unfortunately, he showed up the next day for duty. For some reason, he decided to tell the section he was a webcam model. We asked how he knew they were girls and not guys. He said, "You can tell." Turns out he was showing his dingy to girls and dudes for $2.99 a minute. The night before going out to the field, we do inspections to make sure everyone packed what they needed. He took it upon himself to wake up early to remove all his clean uniforms and clothing from his bags. So he left for 2 weeks in the field, no showering in the field, with field gear and the clothes on his back. We figured this out on day 3 when his stench was billowing out of his driver's hatch. Not to mention he was constantly self-pleasing in the hatch while we were still on the track. Just add that to the stench and critter fest that was going on up there. More often than not, my number 1 man would have to punch the crap out of him to wake him up when we got fire missions. He would give us life's advice on how to scam the VA, other forms of government such as food stamps, and told us an easy way to get free cash is to put your name on class action lawsuits. At one point he told me the Army owed him his sergeant's stripes because he had been in for 9 years, and it's the least they could do for him. I told him I would never allow that to happen as long as I was in the Army. He had no filter for saying stupid things. It was like his burnout brain was directly linked to his mouth. Unfortunately for the rest of us in the crew, we wore CVC helmets, which meant you had constant communication with 3 other people. He was the bane of my existence for 3 years. In the end, I got him to get out of the army. We all end up reflecting on that guy. People get annoyed that he is basically scamming $2,600 a month off of various assistance programs. I ask them, do you really want that guy in the workforce? This is the safest situation for all of us. Sleep easy at night, knowing he isn't in the army anymore. Reddit. Well, unless you're in Iowa. Then he might be trying to bang your daughter or son. Story 11. Had a next-door neighbor who robbed a Howard Johnson's at the top of our street at gunpoint, wearing a ski mask. Took the money, took off the mask, and was walking home, 2 blocks down said street, when cops pulled him over and found the mask, the gun, and the money. He was wasted and asked them, would it help if I said I'm sorry? Got a couple years in Rikers Island. Came out, broke into a local apartment house, stole some money and jewelry, got stuck out on a fire escape when the ladder wouldn't go down, and he had closed the window behind him. Couple more years. That's 2 stories, I guess. There's a few more, but you get the picture. He did leave me a box of cassettes when he went up one time. Among them, the Allman Brothers Live at the Fillmore. I became a lifelong fan. So thanks, the unnamed next-door failed robber. He was actually a really nice guy, and like a young Ray Liotta handsome. Just dumb as a brick.